Reaching 4 consecutive Grand Slam semifinals at the age of 38 could, in my opinion, be one of the greatest accomplishments by Novak Djokovic. Jimmy Connors reaching the semifinals at the US Open in 1991 at the age of 39 is one of the most talked about accomplishments in tennis history. And Novak Djokovic, only a year apart from Connors, tops this by reaching potentially 4 semis in a row at the Grand Slam level. Of course, Djokovic is not there yet. He has to beat Struff, Fritz in the next 2 matches, but he hasn't lost to either guy. But let's focus on Novak's third round match against Cameron Norrie, who's regained his form. He's a very dangerous player and capable of troubling a lot of players at the top of the game. It is natural for the audience to try to figure out what the secret is of the big three, for example. What was Federer's secret? What was Nadal's secret? And of course, what is Novak Djokovic's secret? And I hope that once Djokovic finishes his playing career, that he does a lot of podcasts and interviews because he seems to like doing those. And I recently listened to Novak Djokovic on the Jay Shetty podcast, and there were some interesting things to take out of this podcast. So Novak, for example, said that in many of those legendary matches, after the match, he had no idea how he was able to win. He would sit down with his team and he would tell them, I can't believe I just won this. So according to Novak, even he doesn't know how he does it, which makes it even more mysterious. But I want to use this match against Norrie to highlight one of these secrets that Novak has, one of his biggest superpowers. And let me take you through the match to explain where it happened. So Djokovic wins the first set 6-4. Novak is playing well. Norrie is also playing well. He comes out more aggressive than he used to, according to Novak's post-match press conference. In the second set, it's a very contested match. They get into a tiebreak, and it looks like Djokovic is going to win the tiebreak. Djokovic is up 3-1, and at 3-2, he has a look for a pass, but he plays it right into the Norrie racket. And instead of 4-2, now it's 3-3. And Norrie proceeds to play exceptional tennis and takes the tiebreak and the second set from Novak. Norrie breaks Djokovic in the first game of the third set. And now we're 1 set apiece, and Norrie is up a break. The momentum is clearly on his side. And a lot of people prior to this match had predicted that Norrie was going to take out Djokovic based on the physical issues that Novak has faced in his first 2 matches. But Novak has proven time and time again that not only does he have the ability to recover from physical problems in one single match, but he also gets better physically as the tournament goes on. He's at his absolute best in the late stages of the most important tournaments. But how is he able to do this? Well, I'm going to use the next game in the match as the example of Novak Djokovic's biggest superpower. So think of it this way. Djokovic just lost a second set tiebreak where he was up a mini break. And then he loses his serve right away in the third set. Norrie's serving, and all the momentum, all the confidence is with Norrie. Now, Norrie has a strong belief that he can win this match. And when opponents have this belief, it becomes even more difficult to beat them. So to have the mental strength to reverse this momentum immediately is Novak Djokovic's biggest superpower. And he, in my opinion, is the greatest rebreaker of serve in the history of tennis. Now, it doesn't come easy to him where he's just gonna return winners left and right and break serve. It doesn't work like that. Often, Novak Djokovic breaks back with grit, and this next service game of Norrie was an absolute nightmare for Norrie. It went over deuce many times, and eventually Novak Djokovic gritted out the break, and that was the turning point of the match. Novak Djokovic stole the momentum from Norrie. He held the serve and then broke Norrie's serve again. Now he was up 3-1, and the match was pretty much over. Djokovic has done this throughout his whole career, but in my opinion, the difference between Djokovic and Nadal and Federer is exactly this. Djokovic is a little bit stronger than these two guys when it comes to turning the momentum of a match around. Now, is this something that can be taught? Well, certainly you want to try very hard to turn the momentum around in a match, but it's a lot easier said than done. Because just picture yourself losing your serve. It's so natural to be in a negative state of mind, and on top of that, your opponent is in a very positive state of mind, to go into a little bit of a slump and get down in a set. This is what happens to most players, even the mentally strong ones. As simple as this sounds, what Djokovic does time in and time out, able to reverse the momentum of a match, is one of the greatest superpowers. And it is for that reason that even at the age of 38, he's mentally so superior to all players except Sinner and Alcaraz. And you can make the argument that maybe mentally he is very sharp against them and on par with them, and it's more the physical that lets him down against these two guys. That's a story for another day. But the fact is that Djokovic is mentally stronger than the rest of the tour, except the top two guys in the world. And it's for that reason that I don't see Djokovic losing to Struff in the next round, who played a phenomenal match against Tiafoe, beating him in straight sets. Struff now is back in the top 100. He was struggling all year with the exception of that tournament in Wimbledon. That's where he found his form, and he's so talented. He is the ultimate rhythm breaker, and it's for that reason that he can take out a lot of players that are ranked way above him, one of the best serves in the world, and the returns very aggressively. Tiafoe, on the other hand, is going through a big-time slump. He possibly could drop to 30 in the world, which is a very bad ranking for a player of Tiafoe's caliber. On top of that, Tiafoe loves playing in the US Open. This is a crushing defeat. But as good as Struff is, I don't see him beating Djokovic for the first time. Now, we're going to discuss later if we get the Djokovic-Fritz quarterfinal and what Fritz has to do to finally beat Djokovic. But in any case, I'm still pretty confident that Novak is going to find himself in the semifinals where he will lose to Carlos Alcaraz. Again, if this matchup ends up happening, we'll talk about it for sure in another video. Adrian Mannarino had a resurgence at the 2024 Australian Open, where, interestingly, he beat Shelton, but then he cooled off quite a bit, and now he's back. His ranking is projected to be 55 in the world after the US Open, even if he loses the next match, which he has a chance of winning against Lehecka. But at the tournament in Cincinnati, Mannarino took out Topspin, Machac, and Paul, and then got into a second set tiebreak with Jannik Sinner. So this guy is still extremely dangerous. And I honestly did not think that his game was strong enough to handle Ben Shelton. And as Mannarino himself said in the on-court interview, he probably would have lost this match. And I do believe that Ben Shelton would have won this match if he didn't get injured. Ben Shelton is playing the best tennis of his life. He's getting better and better. And it is very unfortunate that he hurt himself in this US Open, because I think he could have been a very tough challenge for Carlos Alcaraz in the quarterfinals. I still think that Alcaraz would have won that match, but Ben Shelton is one of these guys who can't challenge Sinner and Alcaraz. He has to make some adjustments to his game. I talked about these adjustments, especially on his serve, in some of my previous videos. But in any case, I do believe that he can challenge these guys, and he has proven that by playing some tight sets with Sinner at semifinals of Grand Slam tournaments. So Shelton getting hurt is very tough for him to handle, but respect to Mannarino, who, even though said that he would have lost this match, he still made this match very difficult, especially in that second set. And Mannarino is such a tricky player to play because, first of all, he doesn't miss. He doesn't make a lot of unforced errors. He has a very tricky serve, and he does something that I love, which is adjust his serve positioning. And as a lefty, this makes it even more difficult to return. Now, this was lefty against lefty, and you would think that a lot of these advantages would be gone when a lefty plays a lefty. But it is true that when, for example, on the ad side, Mannarino goes very close to the doubles alley and he wants to get that angle for his slice serve, that ball is going right into the Shelton forehand, where on a righty, this would go into a backhand and this would be a big advantage. But still, lefties don't play a lot of other lefties because there's not that many lefties. So Ben Shelton had difficulties with the Mannarino serve, and he had difficulties figuring out how to play against that consistent and quirky style of Mannarino. And that second set showed that from Ben Shelton. But he is so mentally strong right now that he can turn matches around even when he's not playing his best. And Shelton played a very strong third set, and then early in the fourth, he hurt his shoulder and he still tried to play, but it was impossible because it was clear that something was hurting him very badly. I want to finish this video off with two players from Czechia who I have hyped up a lot in some of my other videos. And I strongly believe that these two players have the potential to be in the top 10 because they have some of the most insane baseline skills. And these two players are Machac and Lehecka. And of course, there's another player from Czechia that's unbelievably good. and that's Machac. Both of these guys have a chance to get into the quarterfinals of the US Open. The rankings of these guys are 21 and 22 in the world. And these are good rankings, no doubt about it. But I think the rankings should be even higher. The biggest problem for Machac and Lehecka has been consistency, but I think the potential is sky high. Lehecka's next opponent is Mannarino. And while you can't ever underestimate Mannarino, this is a match that Lehecka should win. Machac plays Taylor Fritz in the 4th round. And Taylor Fritz, in my opinion, hasn't played his best tennis in the lead-up tournaments to the US Open and also at the US Open. He played extremely well at Wimbledon, some of the best tennis that I've ever seen from Taylor Fritz. But for whatever reason, maybe a schedule that's too tough on him, maybe he was gassed a little bit. This is not the top-level Taylor Fritz, and Machac has a legitimate chance to take him out if he can find his best tennis. Now, this is no disrespect to Fritz. He is a champion. He can find his best tennis towards the late stages of tournaments, and he could easily take out Machac in straight sets. Taylor Fritz is a top 5 player. I have tremendous amount of respect for his game, but it could be that Taylor is maybe a little bit burnt out from this tough schedule. I've said it before, we have to watch Bublik and Djokovic, who decided to skip the lead-up tournaments to the US Open, and see how they do in this tournament. And maybe this is something that other players should copy, because I do believe in burnout from too many matches. If your tank is empty when you get to the US Open, it's going to be difficult to last and find your best tennis through the entirety of the tournament.